Hello, my name is River, and I'm here to talk about why I think Jiro is best on the good symbol, and why I don't mean with Staff Strike. Um, so first of all, everyone knows Jiro by now. So I'll talk about her abilities really briefly. She got her once per turn and look at the top cards of the deck. Put them back in any order, both your deck and your opponent's deck. Um, I honestly, this is best on defense, or with if I'm about to draw a card with Unwavering Slash, are the two uses for it, so I can pick my card. Um, really stacking the opponent's deck on defense, which is something I still mess up sometimes, is the main use of the enhance for me. So that I can stay alive basically without having to put too many resources into defense. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about that more when I talk about my attack strength as well. Then the responses, if it's a weapon, when you play it, you respond to get +1 speed for every card in your card pool. And if it's a charge, it gets +1 damage for every card in your card pool. So I tried to max out cards that are both weapons and charges, which is pretty limited right now, but it works out pretty well. Because the ones that aren't weapons are flash attacks, so no one can really counter the speed that they do have very well. So they end up being pretty fast, 4 or 5 speed. So that's basically I'm playing mostly for the responses, as most people are, and then the enhanced to stay alive. Let me start out with the first version of the deck, which is before the very first provisional, which I know the meta has changed a lot. But I want to make this video a little bit about the thought process of evolving and improving a deck, which I think is something that has a lot of interest to me, and I think it has a lot of interest to new players, or which I'm still kind of a new player. But it's something I think about a lot, and I think it's something that a lot of people should spend more time thinking about if they do plan on um, trying to get competitive with the game. So the first iteration of the deck wasn't horribly different, but I'll start with the attacks for Sound Waves, which Specialized Sound Wave, amazing card. Uh, as the deck progressed, the deck became more and more based off of seeing this card on a kill turn. Um, you don't need it, but I think at the provisional, where I just did top 8, I think 11 of my 13 wins were from Soundwave specifically causing that kill turn to exist. It's also a great block. I mulligan for it for 2 reasons. I don't want to check a 2 when I'm building foundations, and it's a good block. It's one of the best blocks in the deck, actually. It's not just for offense. It's not going to do much early game, but I still want one in hand, so I don't have to worry about checking him as much, and so that I can block with it, put him in a discard pile, and kill people with it later. Uh, One of the main ways this deck kills is, as I've learned the deck more and I've evolved it more, it kills with if I have 2 sound waves in my discard pile and I have 2 or 3 momentum, I'm gonna play some attacks. Uh, and then once my progressive difficulty starts getting hard, I'm gonna play 2 or 3 sound waves in a row. Discard a momentum, put a sound wave on top of my deck with a 6 check underneath it, draw the sound wave, and just do that a bunch. And some of that's going to do a significant chunk of damage because how many people have 3 high blocks? Um, and if you're holding only high blocks against this deck, you're going to die even faster. Um, and then I can use the last one and put whatever attack I think is going to be the best finisher as my at the end of a 2 or 3 sound wave string, and they're all going to be hitting for 6 or 7 damage. And they're going to be 4 or 5 speed because obviously, I have earphone jack in the deck. I'll spoil that, right? Spoil that. Um, so this is the heavy lifter. It's a good block. It enables the entire offense. The more I play the deck, the more I came to rely on this card, and being Jiro and with some of the other cards on the deck, I see it. So it's not that big of a deal to have to rely on a single card because the deck is based around also getting that single card. So it works out, and that's usually not a style I like to play. But when it happens consistently, like a deck like this, not worried about it. The next card, I have 4 Amplified Sound Blast. So this iteration of the deck was when Kirishima was a pain. Um, Obviously, he was running the meta. Fletch attacks are fantastic against him. So that's where the deck started and ended up actually with flash attacks, which I'll explain a little more about that when I get to the most recent version of the deck as to why I think it's still great to max out flash attacks with Jiro. Um, not just because they're not great, or not just because they're great. So this one, 4 low for 4. It's usually gonna hit like a 5 low for 6, 5 low for 7 is like the average this attack is in my deck. It which is fantastic stats for 4 diff. I usually try to poke. I poked it in such a way to try to get one of these in the momentum. If I get 2 of these in the momentum, I'm gonna find a really easy kill turn. Because the momentum ability, enhanced momentum flip. Your next charge or weapon attack this turn gets -2 difficulty, which really helps me elongate my strings. And the longer my strings go, the the more stats Jiro gets to add, right? So I can even, if I have one of these, I can safely do things that put, I can either play assets or foundations or just like non-attack cards, and still be able to play my attack cards when they come because I'm minusing the difficulty on that, which can have some creative uses for your attack strings. Like, oh, like if I do this, it's not quite going to kill them. They're going to be short by like 2 damage. But if I have Amplified Sound Blast in my momentum, I can play a foundation, and then all my attacks from that point forward get +1 damage. So now the kill turn is going to be lethal, and this enables me to play through that a lot. Which Soundwave stacking 6 checks on top of my deck also helps with that. Um, and there's other cards that ready foundations that help with that as well. So moving on, Unwavering Slash. When I first started playing Jiro, which is before this, what I consider the first version of the deck, um, how many unwavering slashes to play was a huge consideration that I put a lot of thought into. For a large, I played on air as well, and I was playing 3 unwavering slash and 3 earphone jack. And I was trying 4, like unwavering slash is amazing, so I tried playing 4, but with only 3 earphone jack, it was kind of hard. But I tried playing 4 earphone jack, and I really didn't like having 4 of the unique in my deck, even though it's a decent block. Not everyone's playing high attacks. It led to dead card situations, which is one of the main reasons I switched over to good is so that I could have, might as well put these out now. So I have the 3 earphone jack that I play, and I put 1 quick creation. I found that that's kind of the sweet spot is having at least 4 assets. Enables you to play 4 unwavering slash, especially because this is only a 50 to 51 card deck depending on the version. Um, and the reason is obviously you want to ask an asset in your discard pile or your hand before you get an unwavering slash in your hand is what you want. I found that making the deck bigger, like 56 cards, it was harder for that to happen because you were really reducing the chances of drawing them together, which is a significant decrease in seeing them together or seeing the asset earlier. But like with 4 and 4, I find it's like 95% that you get to see the asset with or before the unwavering slash, or it's at least just checked already in your discard pile. I do consider the small getting it. If I go second, I'll try to hold an asset in my hand, and I'll just usually review it. Or if I think I need the block, I'll hang on to it. That's a little bit of a different story, and it depends on how my foundations are looking, things like that. Because you do have to play around the 2 check on here. So just got to think about how those things work together. If I found 4 is the minimum to play 4 of these. The other deck that was Jiro, the air deck that topped the Provisional, was playing 4 earphone jack. That's not bad. If I played air, that's probably what I would do today. After my experimenting, and Unwavering Slash is just such a good enabler. Yeah, Unwavering Slash is definitely use Jiro, then you draw a card, and you get to pick what card you get, and then you know that your next check's usually a foundation. Like 2/3 of the time, you're gonna look at the top 2 cards of your deck with Jiro, and you're gonna find a foundation and attack. You're gonna pick up the attack with that, and then you're gonna check the foundation on your amplified sound blast or whatever you're gonna do next, which is really strong. Yeah, so just reading foundations, it's a major flow card, and Jiro flow cards is kind of the basis of this deck. Keep your turn going, keep your damage and speed getting higher and higher, and then they fall over dead. My next attack started with 4 create capture net. Oh, one of these is the next star. You can tell more on this camera. So create capture net, it's a charge, it's a weapon. That was all I thought about when I first put it in the deck. When I started, when I put quick creation in the deck, oh, freaking amazing. Play a wavering slash every once in a while. When I play my first unwavering slash, I build my first asset for free. nine, 19 times out of 20, I probably do maybe like 9 times out of 10, I do like an earphone jack first. Um, but every once in a while, either I won't have an earphone jack available, so I build this first, or sometimes I choose this because I can put this into play, discard a foundation that I really want, put this into play, um, commit it, put whatever foundation I wanted, especially as a sound, into play, use Jiro, make sure there's a 5 check on top of my deck, put earphone jack, get to build it, it's just card advantage. Um, it's pretty basic, but it's really strong, and having that option available, even just as a 1x, because I get to pull it out of my discard pile, so you get to see it way more than just having one in your deck. And that option is really good. The plus or minus damage is really good at the end of a string, especially if I end up finishing with like, oh, I have 6 cards in my card pool. My last one is a create capture net. So what is it? A 10 damage attack. If I have one of these in play, it's a 12 damage attack. That's going in for 8 or 9 speed or whatever. Um, it can also help finish people off. It does a lot. It has the breaker. It's a decent block. It's just versatile, and just having one in there instead of a fourth earphone jack, um, I think changes a lot of your options in such a way that if you're heads up about it and creative about it, you can do a lot of different things. And the last attack slot in my deck, which changes a lot, started with reverse throw. Um, Reverse throw is in here for one reason. I play it first. They use a block early in my chain before my attacks are scary. That's good. Um, Smart players don't block my first 3 attacks. Um, unless they think it's a poke turn or a check bad, and it varies. But if I'm trying to kill somebody, the way to avoid that against this deck is to not block my early attacks. Reverse throw kind of makes them, and if they don't block it, it's one of the best cards in the game. Five, 5 diff, 5 damage, draw a card. Like, it's almost as good as this. Um, Yeah, maybe, but it's a really good card. If I'm not blocking it, if they are blocking it, it enables my other pieces. So it's a 2 diff. I don't want to see it too much. It rounds out my attacks. 18 out of 50 attacks was the ratio I was going for. I ended up changing that slightly, which I'll talk about later. Um, see me at my OCD going a little bit. Um, Anyways, so that's why that's in there. I would actually potentially go back to putting one of those back in the deck at this point. Maybe 2, but probably just 1. Um, because seeing how some of the games played out, I keep it in my mind like, what, if I had a reverse throw one of these last 2 turns, it would have changed the dynamic of how this whole game goes. Because either I get an extra card or my opponent is blocking early and filling up their card pool and putting themselves in a worse situation, so that um, my capture net or my unwavering slash or my amplified sound blast gets through. That's going to do twice as much damage. So that's essentially why that's in there, and that's the attack lineup, and I guess the asset lineup because I cheated and did it early. So I'm gonna move on to foundations. Not all so I'm gonna go through a couple of iterations of deck. They're all gonna be faster than this for the most part. It can be fixed. It's obvious why this is in here. Um, I did expect more stun than I saw at the provisional, but regardless, at least at the Omaha provisional, I expected more, didn't see that much, whatever. It's a great card. Um, I expect to see a lot more stun coming up as well, especially with set 2. So like this is card is one of the reasons I want to go, like, weirdly one of the first reasons was quick creation. Um, and this was like the other one. It's just a fantastic card with a fantastic block. And it protects something that you don't have to worry about stun when this card's in here, because they stun 2, it's stun 1, it's not a big deal. The next I have one self-sacrifice. The deck's kind of been low on low blocks. It's been low on low blocks basically every version of it. That's mostly what self-sacrifice is here for. Um, every once in a while, use it on defense. Every once in a while, actually use it for damage, but it's mostly a blank card with a 1 low block because you need to live, and Ice Storm is a card that exists, right? And you need to block it, and I don't want to block it with some of the other options, which there aren't very many. I don't want to block with those, so that's why that's in there. Uh, then we have Bonds of Friendship. 3 Bonds of Friendship. This version does have coordinated effort. This rounds it out to I think six checks. My experimentation, 50-51 card deck, with 4 sound waves is that I want 5 6 checks in the deck if I can get them. That's what the card's in here for. It also happens to be really good with instant explosive release. That if you're not against All Might 2 or something, you can just ignore it and just flip this, ignore it. So it's not too bad on the board in that matchup. But it's a high block. It's a fantastic high block. It's a fantastic check. That's kind of what it's here for. That's it. That's the main point. One celebrity status. It is poor man sound waves. It does a few things. It lets me put sound waves in my momentum instead of my discard pile if it hits, and then I can pull it up later whenever I want it with one of my draw cards, which is in this version usually just a waving slash, or I could stack it and draw it with one of those, and then stack 2 6 checks, which is a kind of a cool thing to do. Um, but yeah, so I had one copy in it at first. That copy kind of comes and goes. I would potentially put that back in the deck. It's not in the current version, but it's worth an include. Next, we have Manly Passionate Guy. Another reason to play good. I'll put this here. First version of the deck had 4. You're going to watch this number shrink, and I'm going to explain why as it happens. Fantastic card. That's the third reason I played good. Because it's just a really good card. Everyone knows it. Flip to after you block with an attack with a foundation. Attack, that's literally the opposite. You block with a foundation, you get to put it into your stage. Helps you build up between that and its cards out in this version. It helps you build your stage early, which is kind of cool. If someone stuns you and then you use one of those, like, I got like 2 foundations for the rest of the game. If they do that early, um, that's almost a guaranteed game win. Believe it or not, just that alone. So yeah, so great card. No, don't really need to go too much into why I'm running that. Does it for mainstream success. It's a card that a lot of decks run at 4x. I see people running 2 or 3 lately, which I think is smart for most decks. I think my All Might good deck only has 3. But Jiro, it's a great card everywhere. It's an amazing card in Jiro when you get to pick and choose. Card draw in Jiro, especially on defense, which I do a Fast on the Torch, which I'll get to. Um, Being able to, I don't have a block in hand that's either not fast enough or like not low enough of a block, or not the right zone. You get to look at your deck and you have 2 chances to find that. And if any one of those top 2 decks is the block you need, you get to pick it up with that. You get to clear your deck of 3 checks, which can also be like, I'll take this Soundwave off the top of my deck, which not only keeps me from checking bad and failing this block and dying, it makes sure I get to kill you next turn. Um, it's a great card. A lot of people use it for a reason. I am out of space. Let's see how this is going to work. I'm just going top. Do this. Consolidate a little. There. 2 resistance. I originally was mostly playing these for the breaker, honestly. I put them in my deck because I wanted 1 checks. I wanted to try it. Or 1 difficulty foundations. I wanted to try it. The -2 damage is kind of cool. Especially in a world with Froppy, which Froppy wasn't in the world at the point when I made this version. But when you can't block stuff anymore, you get to save 2 damage if they keep attacking. Um, Stun ability comes in handy every once in a while. I don't think there's a lot of stun 2 around when I first made this, but regardless, um, it's still a good card for that. Now we'll go on to, so you'll notice this is how many 0 and 1 how much spam this is. This is 4, 5, 10, 11, 15, 19 spam foundations. The reason for that is the 2 check. When I play a little different than what a lot of people seem to play. I don't try to guarantee as many builds as possible. I try to guarantee the first 2. That's particularly when I'm going first. I try to guarantee 2. My first 2 builds in a 2 check, and then I'll start going on 3s because I think when I fail my third, it's not as devastating. It's not super devastating. I'd rather have a better chance to build uh, 4 and a worse chance to build 3, because that is such a small chance of checking that 2 on the 3rd foundation build, especially if I have one at hand and stuff like that. But I do 2 guaranteed builds that are 2 difficulty or lower, and then I start going on 3s, and it's worked fine. I fail it sometimes, and that's fine. It helps me way more often than it fails me, because building 4 having a chance to build 4 or 5 is way better than the than like a, what, 8% chance of only building 2. Um, so that's kinda where I'm at with it. I know a lot of people say differently and play differently. I haven't had that much trouble with it, and when I do, I am fine with it because of all the other games it helps me win, and going first and building 2 isn't an unwinnable game in a deck that does not need as many foundations as other decks, and also at the time had, 4 mainly passionate guys to, for free builds. Um, so I do have, next foundation is for Specialist of Sound. Especially good when you're running card draw stuff, because you get to see what's on top of your deck. Especially good when you don't have other speed hate in your deck. Um, that's it. An amazing card, particularly good in this deck. But would be an include even if it wasn't, right. 2 passing the torch. Uh, Pretty simple. This card is amazing. I ended up with putting 3 in pretty quickly. It's just a fantastic card. It just getting to play Unwavering Slash. Oh, I checked a 5, so I didn't commit anything. Let me commit passing the torch to draw a card. Okay, cool. I got a card. Now let me do my thing where I build the asset. Let me look at the top 2 cards of my deck. And now I'm wavering, so I drew a free card. So I'm about to ready passing the torch with Unwavering Slash. Then I'm gonna look at the top 2 cards of my deck, and I'm gonna pick my card to draw with Unwavering Slash. So I just got 2 cards, one of which I got to choose. Um, that really helps you. And then, like, as you do your attack string, you can use Destined or Sound Waves. You can really sculpt on the fly and create a kill turn off of 1 or 2 attacks sometimes. Uh, I would not recommend trying to do that unless you're desperate or something, but it happens, and it happens kind of a lot. Like, you can go into turn with two attacks, and if the especially and if it's the right attacks, and if you see, end up pulling a sound waves, the top 3 cards of your deck is a sound waves or something, you get to put in your hand with that combo, um, and then you can really just make a really long string out of like 1 or 2 attacks basically, and passing the torch really helps enable that. And this is one of the main reasons I stayed playing on good. I told you the reasons that I switched over to good, and this really like cemented it for me as I played more with the deck. I did have 3 coordinate effort. One of the other reasons to play on good at the time, um, largely for the other 6 check, I ended up cutting these even before, not all the way, but even before it was canceled. I ended up cutting these. I found that as I played, I was in a better situation to not commit this and build my cards on a lot, because I wanted the cards in my momentum. Because, like, I don't want to put Amplified Sound Blast on my board, as a face down foundation when it could be in my momentum, giving -2 difficulty and making me pick up an Unwavering Slash. That's going to be 9 speed and 10 damage or whatever, or 9 speed, 9 damage, or something like that. So I found myself using this a lot less, and I think overall the ban made the deck better because it made so many other decks a lot worse, and this deck doesn't need it. Yeah, that's about it. Didn't use it nearly as much. I would sideboard 1 out when I was going seconds because I don't want to see it turn 1. I want to cheat it into play with Manly Passionate Guy, um, or with Create Capture Net. I wanted to put into play with those ways. I did not want to build it on my first turn because I didn't find myself using it until my kill turn. I would use it once a game. Now it was really good that once a game because it let me let me build down my 3rd attack, which is like -1 progressive difficulty on my last like 4 attacks of the turn. Is obviously really good. But that's what that's in here for. It's not nearly as good as it is in most other decks. And this is the first version of the deck. I This is after like some testing and like figuring out my Unwavering Slash balance was mainly the first focus of like my testing. Unwavering Slash and asset balance. Um, I ended up This version is like slightly before the first provisional, which I went into. I had been playing only for 6 weeks at that time. Ended up doing really well. I think I took 26. I'm actually going to switch over to that version of the deck, which is just a little bit different than this. So give me 1 sec. Um, so while the throw is good, I had been playing with coordinate effort, and like I have no idea how I didn't think about this earlier, but if I have coordinate effort in my deck, I need hardened jab in my deck. It makes sense. That was the main change. Um, yeah, that was the main change that I put in for the provision. So I took out my reverse throw, which I might put back in now. Ever taking them out might have been kind of a mistake. I took out one capture net and put in 3 jabs into my main board. You play a couple attacks, they block coordinate effort, you play a jab. Even though you're playing jab as like your second or third attack, it's like typically you want to play early in your string so that you can play your charges later in your string. They'll do because they get the damage bonus for doing so. But you get the, oh, you did a 7 damage or 6 or 7 damage capture net or amplified sound blast. They block it. You get to put it up. They probably don't like low blocks are a little hard to come by at this point in the game. Um, so you need to throw it down again for 1 extra damage, basically, because you played a jab is really cool. It goes with the flow aspect of the deck. It usually was ready a foundation and pick up a block card of the zone of my choice. It was mostly for picking up a block card ahead of time, but every once in a while, on it help enable um, usually a low attack or an unwavering slash. Give me like a second unwavering slash, which is kind of cool. Give me a second um, capture net or something like that, which is really cool. But mostly it was like ready, 4 diff, ready foundation, essentially ready foundation. Um, yeah, and have a block ready to go. And every once in a while would help enable kill term. That's not really what it was for. Um, but with coordinated effort, it did get there. The other changes, I took out -1 coordinated effort, which I put in the sideboard, just because I really don't want to see on turn 1 going first. So put in the sideboard, and I only ever put the third one back in when I was going second. So I took out 1 coordinate effort. I put in 1 passing the torch. And at the provisional is when I really discovered the power of this card. I did this change like right before the first provisional, and that like cemented it. Like this card is amazing. This passing the torch is actually one of the reasons I should have switched to good. Like this is one of the reasons to be on good. It's so strong when you're writing foundations. It's so strong when you're trying to sculpt a hand on the fly. It's so strong when you know what's on top of your deck. It's so strong, especially on defense when you know what's on top of your deck. Oh, there's a 3 attack on top of my deck. Well, like committing a foundation to pick up an attack um, is actually gonna like is you commit a foundation, but you just made your blocking easier actually. Um, which is so strong because I have the attack to kill you with too, or to block with, or whatever. Passing the torch in Jiro is insane, and I feel like I don't know how much longer I'm going to play this deck because I've played it so much. I'm kind of bored of it because it's been like 3 months. Um, but yeah, I think the more I play with it, the better I get. The more I'm going to be able to abuse passing the torch in Jiro to pick up like the right block zones and all this stuff on defense. It's super good, um, obviously. And then I did a couple other minor changes that were not terribly important. I took out celebrity status. This was a last minute change because I wanted to experiment with capture evildoers. Um, Capture evildoers is fantastic in this deck. It is the other reason to be on good, especially for the mirror match. Um, Jiro has just taking away Jiro's electric jolts before you can stun down your passing the torch. Um, Taking that away and enabling your sound waves with 1 card is amazing. It's also a good card to block with. Um, I haven't used the form ever. There are situations where I almost used the form, but it usually comes down to I don't need it with the way this deck flows. All the flow cards, and I don't need it, but it's definitely available, and like it can be like you play 3 attacks, play that on a 5, and then keep playing attacks. Could work, or play 2, but it can definitely like I think in the middle of the string instead of early in the string would be when I would play the form when it's come up. But usually I'd rather just use the momentum for a sound waves. Um, and like yeah, because sound waves can find sound waves can find sound waves, so you can usually use all your momentum on sound waves, and that's usually going to be better because you're stacking 6 checks also helps it with progressive difficulty. But whatever, it's there. Um, this card, I think it was like round 4 or 5 of the first provisional. I went second against a Ochako 2. I chose to go second. Worked out really well. I feel like a genius. I'm not sure it was a great idea, but it happened. They did like 17 damage to me or something on their turn. It was horrible. And I took a momentum, and then I played Capture Evildoers, and then I 1 TK'd Ochako 2. To the 33 damage, I think they were at like 29 or something because they burned themselves for 4, but I overkilled them by like 6. It was insane. And I drew a fantastic, I built 5 or 4, drew a fantastic hand, played a Capture Evildoers to enable my sound waves, which stacked 2 6 checks, which let me play all the gas that I drew. Um, Fantastic ad. Really glad I tested it. And because I did add Capture Evildoers, it made a problem that I had with the deck even worse. So I did take out one Manly Passionate Guy because Manly Passionate Guy is a fantastic card. But I have 4 assets that are great to block with. I have an action that's great to block with. Um, I have a card that cheats foundations into my card pool. Um, I didn't have a lot of foundations to block with. I have Soundwaves, which is a great block. I have Hardened Jab, which is a great block. I didn't have a lot of low blocks, so I was find myself blocking with Unraving Slash sometimes. Um, I didn't always want to build Coordinated Effort, and it's unique, so I was blocking with Coordinated Effort. Well, I guess that is a foundation, but building it off of Manly Passion isn't that great. I guess was kind of my point there. So I wasn't. It was sitting dead a lot, basically, and so I took it down to 3. I put in just a better low block, self-sacrifice. This is around the time I started using self-sacrifices in hands. Actually, I don't use it very much, but the low block sucked, so I have it. So that's the version I took the provisionals. Took 26 in a Kirishima meta, and it trounces this deck trounces Kirishima, by the way. Um, yeah, and I guess the last thing I'll say is the one reason I took out Create Capture Net, but that was a mistake. Never should have be below 4, is because I found I didn't always have foundations to play with it to enable the stun too. Then after playing, especially after Plus Ultra became more popular, um, it became one of my kill cards of choice because it's a low instead of a mid, and Plus Ultra became more popular. Um, so like it doesn't need to build a foundation or to stun to be a great card. If it's if you're playing it for 7 speed and 9 damage, it doesn't need to do all those other things to be like, oh, this was worth a 4 difficulty attack. So that's that. Made a mistake. I fixed it. This is why I took the provisional. So shortly after the provisional, I'll just discuss a little bit. One of the first things I did. Oh, at the provisional, I had Delaware Smash in my sideboard. I'm not going to talk about the sideboards very much, except maybe the most recent version. But I think 2 Delaware Smashes in my sideboard for that. I don't think I wrote it down. Or maybe 3. I think it was 3, actually. And I would side these out for Delaware Smash against Eraserhead, Tokoyami, Kirishima, and anyone else that wanted to do stuff on my turn, basically. Um, I would side in 3 Delaware Smash, and it worked amazing. So basically, after Provisional, I had the experience that a lot of people had where, oh, Kirishima games, you play one game, and that's it. Someone wins that game, and then the second game goes to time, um, and that's whoever won the first game wins, right? With Kirishima being popular, I did take out the Hardened Jabs to put in the Delaware Smashes into my main deck. It was around that time where I put in the 4th capture, so I think I was running 2 Delaware Smashes and up to 4 capture nets again. And it worked. It just made the deck better against Kirishima, which is who you have to face a lot at the time. So that's just a little insight into deck building and what I noticed made my deck better. Um, so there was a version with the Delaware Smashes in here. It was just short lived because then I'm just gonna I'll jump ahead a little bit. So I started experimenting with Crow and Frog as Breaker became more powerful, which is Crow and Frog's in the current version of the deck. Um, so yeah, let's look at that. So I took out the 3 jabs, put in the 2 Crow and Frog. Um, it just really helps with Breaker. Just having everything be -1 difficulty means I yeah. It's like, oh, like over the course of 2 attacks, this cancels out Breaker kind of. It makes it so Breaker doesn't kill your attack strings as much. Um, More on that once I switch up the deck a little bit. So I took out the jabs. I put in the force capturing net, those two. Obviously, coordinated effort is gone. Um, so with coordinated effort being gone, I did force to bump that up to 4 because, like I said earlier, I want 5, 6 checks in the deck. They don't exist, so I have 4. Worked out pretty well. This is another good card to stack as a on top to check, but it's obviously it's not as good in most cases, but you make do. So coin effort. I also, because capture evildoers worked so well for me, I'm just gonna move it over here by the assets. I put in second capture evildoers, um, enabling kill turns. We saw more momentum decks when Kirishima died. So that was huge on defense and on offense, and I found myself blocking with it more and more, which is why I cut Manly Passionate Guy down to 1. I cut down to 2 for a while, went up to 3, down to 2, just tested a bunch of stuff. It was dead so often because these 6 cards are amazing blocks. And a lot of these cards are good blocks. And none of those cards work with it. And I had many games where I would build a Manly Passionate Guy on turn 1 and never use it because something would happen. Either I would, I want to build foundations to stun too. I discard foundation to build with unwavering slash to build an asset, and I end up not drawing another foundation and stuff like that. And sometimes I just needed another foundation on the table, and I didn't want to rely on being on like, oh, I have like bonds of friendship in my hand. If they play only lows, or something, if it's a deck that plays a lot of lows and I have high attack in my high foundations, like I don't want to hang on to it. I'd rather just play it, make sure it gets on the table, then hope I get to use Manly Passionate Guy. Um, Depends. If I had enough foundations, it would work, but like it just wasn't working very much, especially for having 3 of them. I went down to 1. Um, I do have one on my sideboard specifically when I take actions out of the deck. Not everyone, a lot of people stop taking momentum against me, or I'll take one of these out of the deck, or both. Which I have some regrets about not having this in game 3 of my matchup with Tokoyami, who took first, but that's a thing. When I take these out of the deck, I put a second one in. I'd be willing to put a third one in possibly if I wanted to use it in the sideboard for that. I just didn't. For like that case scenario, it's not hyper common. So that's why it's still a great card. I just wasn't getting to use it as often with the structure of this deck and the way I was playing it. Just a little more insight into how I chose the deck build and what worked for me, and I think I am I think this deck that I made is better than I am skilled. Like I'm getting pretty good at this game. I do not think I am. I think this deck is really good though. I think this deck is kind of what carries me um, through the 2 provisionals that I did pretty good at. But I'm definitely getting better. But I think I'm definitely I think I'm maybe a better deck builder than a player at this point, and that's okay. Um, because I think I like to take into account a lot of things basically when I'm deck building. I think that really helps my play. So I did end up doing in the last slots. I ended up putting in 2 self-sacrifice for the low block. 3 might have been okay. 3 was okay. I did not see as many Froppy at the professional as I thought I did, but a lot of fast low attacks come out of Froppy, and the card will clog. So um, 3 difficulty low blocks weren't going to cut it, or plus 3 low blocks weren't going to cut it. That's literally all the reason there's 4 of these in here. Um, with Froppy being less common than I expected, Um, I think she's the best deck right now. I just don't know how to play her, nor do I have friggin' Heatwave. Um, so I'm not on Froppy, but yeah, I think if she does end up becoming as popular as I thought she should be, I would keep 4 of those in here. I'd probably drop them now because it's just a low block. Having 1 or 2 in the deck to use the ability sometimes to get your damage to kill is cool. And then I bumped up to 51 cards. Added a resistance. Basically, I found that I was checking attacks a little more than I wanted to. Going down to 17 attacks out of 50 was not the move. Um, so I bumped it up for a reason, like just like that one more foundation. This is gonna sound wild. That one more foundation did help with Manly Passionate Guy, but mostly it helped with Great Capture Net. Um, I was drawing hands with where like my capture net was some, I mean, on a kill turn, capture net can just be a last card, and it's a fantastic card. But like this turn would be a lot better if I had 1 foundation, which is just it just happens. Like I got 2 assets in action, 3 attacks, but like, oh, I could kill them if I had a foundation to stun them. Um, I put 1 resistance in the deck, like, or 1 more foundation in the deck, and I haven't had that problem since. Um, I've literally since that moment, I haven't drawn capturing that on an attack on a turn that I wanted to attack without having at least 1 foundation that I wasn't wanting to discard with Unwavering Slash. Um, I know it's just 1, but it made a difference. And the only times would be like maybe I'll have 2 capturing nets and only 1 foundation, and that's fine. Which isn't something I realized at first, but that's fine because you play 1 early, you play the other one at the end of your string, and that's okay. So that's it. This is the most recent version of the deck. Um, yes, I'll do. I'm just thinking if I want to talk about attack strings or not. I'll talk about my sideboard first, actually. So sideboard, I already told you there was 1 Manly Passionate Guy in the sideboard. Get out of here, cards. Manly Passionate Guy. This is getting a little chaotic down here. Um, just because it's a great card, and when I took away less non-foundations, I could put it in, and it could continue being great. 1 resistance. For stun 2 decks, I had 4 in my main board a lot. I also put the 4 resistance in against Tokoyami and Asui because they play a high speed quantity of attacks, cardboard stuffing. The point is, there comes a point where I'm not going to be able to block their attacks anymore, so I'm just going to give their next one -2 and and maybe -6 or -2, -4, actually more likely, and then maybe -6 with creation, and just like pray that like having effectively 6 more life, either they choose not to attack anymore or they just don't quite get there, and it happens a lot. Mostly, it's just better than being defenseless. So against stun 2 decks, against Asui and Tokoyami, I put the 4th one in. Um, I have another quick creation. This was for water decks that want to go into deadlock. Mostly, um, because if they're smart and quick creation is in my sideboard, they won't go into deadlock because Unwavering Slash is one of the few ways to get on demand, like with pulling that out, is one of the few ways to get on demand deadlock. Whereas most of the good deadlock stuff is foundations, and I'm going to build it on my turn, and you have a chance to get rid of it before I kill you with it. This is if it's in my discard pile, I essentially have deadlock on the board. As far as my opponent's concerned. And so Froppy doesn't get to build in deadlock. Kamui, who I didn't see, but whatever, doesn't get to build in deadlock. None of those control decks do, which is super strong. And as a 2 mid breaker, I block with it, and then they get the signal deadlock isn't going to happen this game. Which is strong. So I would usually take out one of my earphone jacks just because the deck's tight, and I don't want to lose foundations. Only running 27 is already pretty low. Running 26 is when I was running the issues before, so I basically always try to avoid that. Sometimes I took out a, uh, sometimes I did run this only, like I take out this or one of these, and I'd only have like 3 assets in the deck, and I would have to mulligan really hard for it in those games. But sometimes there's just something I needed really bad for my sideboard. But it's definitely a risk because you can just miss your kill turns. Um, 2, create capture evildoers. Um, there's a lot of decks that's really good against um, screw you, reciprocal burst. Um, screw you, other Jiro. Screw you, Ochako. Like I played Ochako and I kept them off momentum. I believe it was their fourth turn. Third, yeah, but between full blocks and playing two capture evildoers, it was like their fourth turn before Ochako one got momentum against me. Now that's luck, but also having four capture evildoers lets it happen. Um, and it's good even if the cases aren't that extreme because the electric jolt can be a game winner. The zero gravity lift, especially if you could chain a few of them together, can be a game winner. Um, so just turning those things off, or just if they see that it's in your deck, they have to play things in a slightly less optimized order to secure their momentum abilities. So it's just good. I played 4. You're so obvious. It was at 3 for a long time. Ultimately, I don't know what I would run if I were to remake the deck today. Um, I did a 4th one because I'm bad at sideboards. I'm just going to be honest about that. I don't know what the sideboard went. Don't have very much experience with it. I have experience with a lot of card games, and I've done very well in them. None of those games had sideboards, so I'm still learning. The idea was against some decks, I want to play more. You're so obvious. Then they can play um, irresistible force of nature. Basically, I want to put 2 of these down. That way, if they play irresistible force, they still have to play around my You're So Obvious. Which the 4th one, usually 3 is good for most people. The 4th one was mostly for Asui. As you can tell, I was a little bit scared of Asui coming into this. I did play against 2 of them. I tied the first one um, with like 4 attacks in my hand. And then I didn't get my turn. Very unfortunate. But I did beat the second one, which was a very tight game. Um, yeah, so that's what Use of Obvious was kind of there for, was to help me survive. Same as Resistance, to help me survive when I can't block anymore. When they played like 3 or 4 attacks and now they're playing their frog lashings and my card pool's full, and they're playing their tongue whips and my card pool's full. That was to be like, you know what, like I'll blow up a foundation for 4 damage because it might be the only thing that lets me live. Um, I'm not sure I ever brought all 4 in, maybe for like one game. The night before the provisional, or maybe before the top 8. I think it was before the top 8, but like at the provisional, I kind of decided like, and before I was thinking about it, I'll maybe put 4 of these going second, but going first against the decks I want that with. It's also good for Tokiyami, um, for quite a few things. But like this deck has enough power, turn 2 and turn 3 power, that's going first. I think I just want my card draw because I had to take out like some of these, like they're mid blocks usually. Which if you look at the mid blocks, it's uh my draw cards basically and resistance. When I was sideboarding against those decks, because those are decks that play high and low. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what happened. But I'd rather just have my card draw and just kill them first, because I'm my deck is capable of killing them first actually. So I was actually taking out these going first. I think that I didn't. Yeah. Anyways, I think I made some mistakes where I didn't do that, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I probably could have killed it with a passing the torch and play, honestly. So I ran into that situation a couple times, not a lot, but so yeah. So if I would keep 4 of these in the sideboard, maybe I'd have to think of something else better to put in there. The last sideboard piece is plus ultra. Um, I don't use it. I don't. It's not a good card for this deck. Um, I didn't use it the whole provisional. I have probably only sideboarded it in like twice. I think I'd rather just do You're So Obvious against most opponents, just because like I have good mid blocks with Breaker. Most of the stuff that's too fast to block is like Osprey can't block because she does my card pull, plus Ultra still fails against her a lot of times. But the other stuff is Capture Evildoers is good against Reciprocals. Like it shuts down a lot of that speed boosting stuff with this card. And I can't put them both because if I have 3 or 4 assets and I have 4 actions, uh, and then I put in a 5th action, I don't. Um, ooh, I got tournament prizes in the mail. Thank you, Carta Magica. Um, anyway, so if I put like 3 or 4 assets and I put a 5th action in the deck, like it's just bad. I'm just not going to get to build. My capture net stun gets turned off. Like it's not great. So that I would regret that. I was considering switching to a Delaware Smash, which turns out would have helped me. The flash attacks. I did say I was going to come back to this. The reason I stayed on good, another one of the reasons I stayed on good was Asui and Tokiyami don't like flash attacks. I did expect Tokiyami to do well. I've talked about it a couple times. But basically, flash attacks. Tokiyami doesn't get to minus the damage. Asui doesn't get to do all her speed hate stuff or card pool clearing. Um, you play attack, she blocks. You get to, she wants to kick you out of her card pool. Well, not if I play 3 flash attacks. You have to deal with like blocking like a normal person. So that's one of the reasons I went flash attacks. I don't know if I would have put Delaware smashing against Asui. Definitely would have against Tokiyami. Definitely love putting in against Eraserhead, who I happen to not see. I decided on plus ultra in case I came across like Detroit Smash or um Gale Force Punch. I ended up going against Momo and I ended up not siding against Momo because I'm like I'd rather just block with Capture Evildoers if the situation comes up. I'll probably be able to block it even if she gets at 6 speed. Um, on the other hand, I think if I played Momo again today, I might put in a plus ultra. I actually played Momo last night and I lost, so maybe I should have put in plus ultra even though I was using a different deck. Yeah, so that's the gist of it. So another reason I stayed on good for this tournament was so capture evildoers. Nope, capturing net. I call this capture Jiro for a reason, so I don't have to like because it has all these capture cards that it's kind of based off of. So like obviously capture evildoers, stealing momentum decks were becoming more popular. Resistance when I can't block Froppy, passing the torch to be more aggressive. Um, like those are kind of some of the main reasons. The asset, some of the reasons from earlier, stay the asset is very good. The stun hate, I expected more stun, so the stun hate in these 2 cards very good. The one low block is fine. Like I needed it. Like I'd have a 2 low block, I think, in air, and then I didn't really run much when I played this on air. I didn't really run much of observant student, so I didn't have a 1 low block. Um, any of those versions. I don't think she needs about the expirations, but could have run it. Anyways, capture evildoers or capturing that. Sorry for So obviously Breaker 2 is a big thing right now. So this is actually a good time to talk. I'm just gonna clear some of this off and talk about attack strings a little bit and um why I play it on good with these attacks for the same reason. Um, so Breaker 2 is popular. So a lot of times it really depends on what foundations they have up. But what card to play first? Oh no, I need these. There we go. What card to start your attack lineup with? It's this if you have it. Obviously, we're not stupid people. Moving on. One of these 2. It's hard to choose. It's hard to know sometimes. I honestly made that choice wrong a few times during the provisional. Unwavering Slash is good because it puts your earphone jack in play. Helps you sculpt your hand. You get to know if your hand's a kill turn. Basically, after you play Unwavering Slash, you have a lot better insight into how this whole how the whole turn is going to go, basically, which is obviously super helpful. Not to mention if you play, yeah, I mean that's a lot of pros for it. It gives you your insight sooner. It's also easier to block, and so I'd rather have the more damage on this attack that's going to be harder to block because if I play this, not that foundation. That foundation's banned. Let's grab the coordinated effort. If I play this, 7 damage. Now it's 4 damage on a half block. Or if I play this, that's 6 damage. That's 6 damage. Assume this is gonna get full blocked. I always do. This is gonna get half blocked half the time, basically. So it's just 1 extra damage getting through. It's also is potentially 1 more foundation you're committing, but whatever. Because this, if you check 2 5s, this gets ready. If you play like this way, check a 5 on this, didn't commit anything. Check a 5 on this, you get to ready it anyways. So you come out with nothing committed. If you do it this way, you get the information sooner, you get the speed sooner, you get the stun later, which depends on what their board looks like. Um, but if you check a 5 here, you still have 1 foundation commit at the end of this string, which if you have passing the torch on the board, not a big deal because when you play this first, you check a 5, you draw, you're ready. Like it's worth having a foundation committed for. But the main reason, if someone's playing a deck with Breaker 2, I'll put the sucker down first. They're gonna block it. Probably, it's not a dumb thing to do, especially on a poke turn. If it's a kill turn, they just want to shut. They might wait till later and half block something with their Breaker 2. I put that down. And if they block with a Breaker 2, I build a foundation, a 1 diff, a 0 diff, a 2 diff. I know it's on top of my deck, so I know what foundation I can build without committing anything. And then I throw that sucker down. And then I get to build it, that's good flow. It's equivalent to ready foundation. So it's good as this capturing net is really good against Breaker 2, basically. One thing I didn't do as much, and it did bite me in the butt, is play this, kind of go into default mode, and I could have saved my capturing nets for later in my chains against some decks with Breaker 2. So I'd, play this, and then they did Breaker 2 on that, and I was kind of in a bad situation. If I play like an Amplified Sound Blast next, then if they don't use their Breaker 2, things are gonna get kind of interesting. Because then if I play this, they Breaker 2, but they across the order 1, 2, 3, 4, they half block. It's like a 8 damage attack at this point, which I guess is not much different than 7. But if they didn't, I already did a lot of damage this turn, so my turn's over now. It's really not that bad. Is kind of what I'm getting at. It can still shut down a kill turn that way, but having the capturing net really helps with that. Having Amplified Sound Blast, which I know Eric can use Amplified Sound Blast, but having running 4 of them and having them in my momentum can help with Breaker. If you're predicting it, another reason to run 4 Soundwaves, besides that it's the best card in the backbone of the deck, is if I get Breaker 2'd, I get to throw down Soundwaves earlier than I want to, but better than playing, if I don't have Foundation Capturing Net available. It's better than playing, another Moving Slash or Amplified Sound Blast, into a Breaker 2, screw that noise. Play this on a 4, check a 5, commit 1 Foundation, stack my deck how I want. Usually, pick up one of these for the end of the chain, put a 6 down, then play this without committing anything. I just played 3 attacks, committing 1 Foundation or something like that through a Breaker 2. That's sick. And then I can play whatever I want at the end. For what I kill with, Plus Ultra became very popular. Plus Ultra and Wall Cling became very popular. Plus Ultra and Tape became very popular. Creeping Realization became very popular. Obviously, these are all water cards. That really changes the way I have to think about my kill turns. So the main thing I did about that is originally I was killing with this. Do the math. I'm gonna get some water real quick. Do the math. Wait till one of these is unblockable. Play it. Do 10 damage to finish him off. Easy. Then I started getting plus ultra blocked. So started doing this. You know what? Especially if I put a 3 on top of their deck. If I can stack their deck instead of mine, use this, put 3s on top of their deck, then play this next if I have the foundations for it. As my last attack, this will be 10 damage. Oh, it's only 8 speed, but a lot of situations that's still unblockable. Do the math, they die. And then everyone's playing on water, and they were just tape though, and I'm just gonna use tape, and I'm gonna make it a min. I'm gonna plus ultra block. I'm like, okay, all that speed on my weapons was kind of for nothing. Or I put it down. Oh, you have 2 creep realizations in play. I'm going to put this down. It's going to be a fantastic. It's going to be great. It's going to be 10 damage, and you're going to give it minus 12 damage. Okay, that's nothing. Um, so I was struggling with that. And I actually switched off of Jiro. That was one of the reasons. Um, but I played it. I was started playing a little more. I started seeing some of the things about capturing net and Breaker 2. Honestly, was one of the main reasons, or the 3 different Breaker 2. Um, So I kind of saw some ways. Oh, you know what? I haven't played that matchup in a while, and I'm a better player now. Um, so I did take. I'll preface that with saying I took like 6 weeks off and ground All Might on good, All Might 3. So I thought that was the way to go. I think it's a very good way to go right now. I ended up coming back to this. Capturing net for Breaker 2 is one of the reasons. I was thinking about like maybe I was losing to those water decks because I wasn't as good as I am now, and I wasn't playing my attack strings properly. Um, which I think ended up being the case because with them, I do put quick creation in out of the sideboard, but and have 2 or 3 earphone jacks in the deck. But the 5 speed flash attacks that are not mids is how I kill Asui and other water decks. Is because if I play, I can easily play something not in this order. That can be my attack string. Oh, they can do all their shenanigans on my first 2 attacks, and they are nothing. But then 7 damage, 8 damage, 8 damage, 9 damage. What is that? 16 plus 16. So it's like 32 damage worth of 5 speed flash attacks that are not mids. So you can plus alter them for half, and then my next attack can still, probably get them or something like that. Um, so yeah, so that's what cemented it. Is I actually played against Damdil in I think the Tuesday tournament, the week of provisionals. I was going to play All Might, and I'm like, I think I can play Jiro if I just been doing it wrong before. So I tried it out. I thought I'm going to lose practice with All Might 3, who I'm still not great with. But I just gave it a shot. Ended up beating Damdel in like some good games where I think we both made some mistakes, but the devastating power of 5 speed flash attacks against Asui, who's so defensive with enhances, um, against a talented player, right? So like I know it wasn't like too fluky or whatever. Me and him talked about it afterwards too. Um, yeah, it worked really well. I think um, we talked about like he should have sideboarded into Kame Woods going second against us, and I agree. Even though I've never played the matchup, I think that's what Kame Woods on water against Jiro is a lot better than Asui against Jiro, especially going second. Um, but that's it. Like that's how I beat her. Is I just don't try to do a 10 speed attack. Don't try to do a 9 speed attack or up for 10 damage. Just throw stuff down. If they don't block my early stuff, I'll just settle for doing 15 damage and building a foundation and passing. If they do block my early stuff, I kill them. Um, yeah, and one thing is I try to balance my attacks. So like I'm not doing a bunch of weaker attacks followed by a bunch of really powerful attacks on it. They can just like take like the 5, 6, 7 damage from these. Um, and just block those. Opponents can block those. Not Asui, just like kind of in general. Um, so like trying to like stagger it like this. So like these two are both doing like if I have 2 other attacks in my card pool, like 7 damage, 7 damage, 8 damage, uh, or yeah, something like that. So like 7 damage, 7 damage, 8 damage, 10 damage. Like that's a little bit better of a thing. Um, just for like the damage a little more spread out besides the last one. Um, but it's just kind of just about what I think they can block, and that affects like the order you want to play those. Um, I ended up doing a large chunk of my wins, and a large part of how I've been playing the deck is people have to hold low blocks, or you can kill them with your really powerful low attacks that are 4 diffs, which is insane. Jiro is kind of nuts. Um, they hold low blocks till they die, and then so you catch them holding low blocks to survive. And you just play like 3 or 4 sound waves at the end of a chain as like your something like this. Um, so what is this? 6 damage, 7 damage, 8 damage. They block one of those, and that's like how you finish a kill turn. It usually takes 2 attack turns to kill with this deck, but not necessarily. Um, but just all highs. They just spam the highs until they're dead. Sometimes they get to play 4. Sometimes they get to play attack strings that long in this deck. Because there's so much good flow. You're building foundations in the middle of your attack. You're readying foundations. Earphone Jack is readying foundations. Especially if like they have 1 block left. Yeah, I don't need the speed anymore. They only get to block 1 of my 2 attacks, and each one kills them. You're into situations like that a lot. Like even if they have a 1 high block, yeah, let them block 1 because I know for sure that there's a 6 on top of my deck, and I know for sure I'm gonna check my attack, and I know for sure it's gonna be lethal. Um, which is essentially the power of the deck and the power of Jiro in general. But you kill him with something like this, and then next game, like crap, high attacks, and then you kill them with something like this, or like this, whatever you have available, basically. But you kill them with something like that, and the second game, and then there's no game 3 or whatever. But like you can spam a zone. Obviously, you need to play the highs to get your lows or to stack 2/6. Like I might play. There's a lot of ways to do it, but like you stack if you have 2 lows in hand, you stack 2/6 checks and play 2 lows. One of them is gonna probably kill them. Or if your plan is to kill with lows, you play this. If they block that, that's amazing for you. They probably won't. They'll take 7 though, so that's also amazing for you. You play this, you stack a check, you throw down that, you play this, and you stack either. Depends on what's in your hand. If you have like 2 other lows in your hand, you stack 2 6s or 5s. You might be down to 5s or whatever, or you stack one of these and if you have enough foundations ready, you can stack one of these and a check and like get your known check and have enough. If you know 1 check, if you can play 2 if you check an attack on the second one. This would absolutely be the other order though, but yeah. So these are kind of what a lot of your attack strings look like. This is what like your attack string looks like. If you're going low, you do play some high attacks if they block it, whatever. Trying to spam low, but these are enabling me to check the kill attacks. Or they're just the kill attacks, which happen more often than not this weekend. It's like, okay, I know you're prepared for lows. You already blocked this with Breaker 2. You have 2 or 3 cards left in your hand, and I know you're at least one of them is going to be a low block because you're smart. So you can only block 2 of these, and they're all 6 damage or more, which means you're dead, depending. Crow and Frog is great on when you're trying to kill on highs, because no one can block this. If they block this, they don't get to block your 7 attack damage. Like they know this is going to be hitting for 7 later in the attack string, so they don't get to block that. That's just they start 5 damage lower, which is fantastic, obviously. So I talked a little bit about kill strings. It's really varied, which is why I have had fun playing this deck for so long. Even though I know I said I'm going to change it up a little bit, which I am. It keeps this deck fun because you can get creative with your kill turns. There's a lot of ways you can math it out. There's a lot of ways you can um, orchestrate things and guess what your opponent's doing to spam a zone, things like that. Poke turns, the best. Where did it go? It doesn't really matter. Any foundation. The best poke turn is probably this. It's fantastic. Uh, like if it's your prime turn, like your turn 2, your first time to attack. You stun 2. You got 4 speed, low for 6. You build this by 4 speed flash for 6. If they can block this, they should, because who knows what I'm going to play next. This is just the ideal scenario. Sometimes it'll just be like this. Sometimes it'll be, if I don't worry about Breaker, I might play Wavering / Second. I might play 2 Sound Waves afterwards or whatever. Like there's no set thing. But holding 2 low blocks kind of is a challenge for a lot of decks. Like even just holding 2 low blocks is means you're not playing. Like you probably wanted to play one of those, right? So even if they held 2 low blocks, like they're still kind of a little worse off. But a lot of times they'll hold two and they'll block that and they'll be like, perfect, I'll just play a second one. Um, this attack string did 19 damage, I think, against an Asui once. I think it was a Damsel match. Where he had to take 19 or block with his tongue whip. Um, we talked about it. Probably should have blocked with his tongue whip, but still, I would have done 12 damage to him and had two momentum, which is fantastic. But yeah, this is my favorite poke. My second favorite poke um, is this. And then if I draw an attack or I have another attack, and if they block both of those, or they're committed out, you know, um, or even if they don't block both of them, but like they're not in a position to block anything else, I'll play another sound waves or amplified sound blast if I have it available. This is a great poke turn. You get 5 damage, you get a momentum. If you do 5 damage to someone and have a momentum, you have a possibility of doing the rest of their damage, even if they're like a 30 health character or a 28 health character in one turn. Um, especially if you draw into a capture evildoers and turn that into 2 momentum. Yeah, that's the gist of it. Like another tip is don't always put sound waves in your momentum. This deck loves momentum. It loves having sound waves in your discard pile even more. That took me a long time to figure out. Before I put sound waves in momentum, to look at how much momentum I'm going to have at the end of the turn, to look at how many sound waves are in my discard pile and how many sound waves are left in my deck. Because if there's only one sound waves left in my deck, um, that kind of changes things a little bit, and how thick my deck is, but still before I have to cycle. But like, I'd rather have more sound waves in my discard pile than momentum in a lot of situations. Like if I have 2 momentum and only 1 sound waves in my discard pile, like I don't want a third momentum. I want a second sound waves in my discard pile because I'm going to pick that up and use it for momentum, basically. And use that momentum with it. But if I have 3 momentum and only 1 sound waves in my discard pile, I'm only going to get to use 1 or 2 of those momentum. Whenever I draw into my last sound waves or whatever, which is a problem. It's like turning off your own kill turns by taking momentum. So that's just something to learn how to balance a little bit, and that's kind of my tips for it. I think that's everything. I might just throw more stuff in the comments. This was a lot longer of a video than I intended it to be. I guess I have a lot to say. Because I do like to get down. Like this is the depth at which I like to think about things when deck building, because all these things do come up. The one thing I'll say is, I think Delaware Smash in the current meta might be a good sideboard ad. I think I might take out 1 Crowan Frog and put in 1 reverse throw. Because I think this, and Unwavering Slash, which I guess I'm just gonna get it to show. That's a really good opening. No progressive. They have to block it, and they might want to block it with like what they block that with, a mid or a high or a low, is a hard choice for them. Because they know Unwavering Slash might be coming, and they know my kills. If they know my kills are going to be lows or highs, on my attacks are trying to be lethal. They don't want to do those, but if they hold 2 mids, I'm actually just really happy if they hold 2 mids and block this. But it's a 7 mid for 7. Like if they use a mid on this and half block this, that's great. If they and if they don't block that, it's just separately great. But this to me feels like a really strong opening. If I check a 5, check a 5, check a 5, I've committed 1 foundation, but guess what? I readied it with Unwavering Slash anyways. So if you play this and I check 3 5s and I have any other attacks in my hand, like if I have 1 sound waves in my hand, you're probably just a dead man. So I'm considering that. I think it's a good move. I think one thing that I missed in the deck is having that throw to force early blocks. And then having to deal with those blocks later in the game, especially with thinking about it a little more now, especially with like the capturing net as the counter to breaker. Like put that down and like, oh, if they try to use their breaker on that because they have to block it, they don't want to use their one high blocker, their two low block or whatever. Um, so they use their breaker block on that, like perfect. Getting the breaker out of the way early and building a foundation into it is what I want. Um, yeah, so that's just like a change I would consider making, and a couple of cards I might consider adding that were some of the others were in the deck at some point was Harden. Starting with the basics, honestly pretty decent. I would probably take out a passing the torch for it, even though I love passing. Um, Making my first unwavering slash a 6 speed for 7 damage makes it something they want to block, especially against breaker decks. And especially because I can sometimes commit it for free, or I can make my extra attack at the end, my like capturing net or something, an extra 1 speed 2 damage sounds good. Um, I keep taking it out because I like passing too much, but this is definitely a strong consideration, and especially to try to pull out that mid block early on a first attack of the turn on Wavering Slash. Um, Planning ahead. That is the so I was thinking of taking out plus ultra for planning ahead or for Delaware Smash. Either of those obviously would have been better. I did end up running up against a couple decks that play only high attacks. Tokiami that won played almost no low attacks against me. I sideboarded in a lot of low blocks, unfortunately, um, and just thought they sideboarded out their low attacks. And I thought they just didn't see him for the game, and then game 3 came and they didn't see him again. And afterwards, he told me like, yeah, they're all on my sideboard basically, besides the breaker, besides Ice Storm. So, anyways, so there's a lot of matchups where that's good against, and plus ultra. Like I said, I played probably whatever like 100 games with this deck or whatever, and I've used plus ultra like 3 times. So it's obviously a waste of space. I could consider this. I don't think it's necessary. Someone mentioned it to me. They're like, "Oh, your deck would be good with setup strike," and I'm like, "Probably not," but like maybe. Um, Especially if I'm gonna go for a high attack spam turn or something. Like putting one of these in the sideboard and siding it in. Like especially if I kill somebody with a low attack string, and so the second game put one of these in and like do like Crow and Frog and Wavering Slash setup strike into like 3 sound waves. And the first one gets extra speed, or you can do this +3 speed into something, and that would be like one of the times plus ultra would be good in the deck is like +3 speed into a capturing net, plus ultra the speed, make sure that 9 damage hits or 10 damage or 11, 12 damage hits or whatever. I think the highest I've got capturing net is at the end of a string is like 10 low for 14 damage or something like that. But the extra 2 was from quick creation, um, which is cool. But anyways, that's it. That's all I got for today. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'd love to talk about it more. I'd love to answer questions or get your insights because like I'm not the perfect deck builder. I'm terrible sideboarder. Um, so yeah, tell me what you think, and I will do my very best to respond to you.